My name is Lucia Sanroman and I am Associate Curator here at the Museum of Contemporary Art San Diego. My role in this exhibition was to act as organizing curator for the show, which is put together by myself and Pedro Alonso, who is a freelance curator working out of Boston. Pedro Alonso came to the museum with the idea to do this show, which is a street art show that takes place both inside the museum walls and outside throughout the downtown. He had the creative concept and he had the contacts with the artist. What I've done is to make his vision possible. And it was an interesting project, a little bit difficult to deal with because the artists in this show are not in every way or in every case gallery artists. In other words, they are very independent. They don't necessarily need to have, they don't really necessarily want to have a lot of contact with museum people. They do work in the streets. So my role was to help create his vision. Viva la Revolucion, a dialogue with the urban landscape, consists of 20 artists, international artists from all over the world. These artists were very, very instrumental in creating or in transitioning from being street artists who only work in the street in an ephemeral manner quickly to artists who work for galleries or work in galleries and museums and whose work is valuated a great deal more than street artists who just do the thing and the work is actually, in a sense, priceless. It's not valuated. It doesn't mean it's not valuable. It's valuable, but it doesn't have a number attached to it. As you enter the museum, the first artist you encounter is Maurice, an artist from Mexico City who works with some of the poorest communities in that city. He's very closely associated with homeless children, for example, that live in the street by themselves. Oftentimes these children are addicted to glue and other narcotics, and this is what makes them survive these extremely, extremely harsh realities. Then to the right of that work, we have galleries where we have the work of date farmers, is the yellow painting with the dogs. We have Mark Bradford, William Cordova, and Shepard Fairey. That gallery, the point of that gallery is to sort of talk about work that is inspired by the streets but exists very well and very comfortably in the high-end commercial contemporary art world. Mark Bradford is the recent recipient of the MacArthur Genius Grant. He's an artist who quite literally has gone through and picked materials off the walls of pasted boards, an advertisement in Los Angeles. He's from East LA, African-American artist. And he then uses this material to create these very intricate surfaces that are very painterly. In this case, he's made a sculpture out of soccer balls. The next gallery after is Design and Ryan McGuinness, and those two artists are interesting together because they are what I call really cash. You know, it's really, really, really glossy, high-end, shiny, cool work that looks super glam and so on. Design takes the lowrider and makes it even more and more sort of exaggerated, grand, and not elegant necessarily. It's like a Versace version of a lowrider. And, and then Ryan McGuinness takes the language of advertisement in the streets and it all sort of goes crazy. And then layers and layers and layers and layers of images that have this kind of tendency to negate or add to one another. So both of those artists, in fact, reference music in their work directly or in method, sort of like DJs of street culture, that transform that image and that energy into different languages, one in sculpture and the other one in painting. In this gallery we have Stefan Dojchenov, also known as Kalman. He's made this altar that uses hybrid images from different cultures, from Catholicism, Protestantism, of course. Then there is an element of kind of medieval illumination and his own crafted, self-made crafted symbols that he's borrowed from alchemy and so on. And this is an artist who has done a lot of mural work in the streets that has to do with a kind of spiritualism, but it's a general spiritualism. He's not particularly attached to one religion or another. And this piece talks about the collusion that exists sometimes between the power of the church and the power of the state. Or it can be any kind of powers that collude against the people. Other works that are very intense here in this show is Swoon, which is in the middle of the next gallery, which is this accumulation of found materials with images of cut paper that are printed out of people that she calls the forgotten. The forgotten are the poor, the disenfranchised, the long-suffering. And she addresses that with a piece, which is almost like an operatic sensation of the piece, because it's so large and it has this kind of apex quality. Well, it's a mound, really. It's a huge, so it gives you this very heroic view, again, of people that she wants to point to us and bring into our field of vision, quite literally. I think that we need to question the categories. We need to question underground, we need to question next movement, we need to question them all. I think that it is hard for us to say when we are right in the middle of things what will be and will not be. So I'm not prepared to say whether this is the great next movement, and I don't actually believe in the great next movement. I believe that we should follow what we think is right now and then let history decide. What I want to say is that as long as the artists who are the makers of these are participating fully, then in the crafting of this movement or this market phenomena or whatever it is, and they can still have control of how it goes, where it's presented and how, then everything should be fine.